John Mercer had never imagined that a call from a stranger on Earth could change the course of his life forever. The retired military officer, known for his sharp instincts and calm demeanor in crises, was now sitting in a small apartment in New York, enjoying his quiet days after leaving active duty. He liked the simple things: morning coffee, old records playing in the background, and the occasional visit to the local library. Life had slowed down for him, and he thought he had left danger far behind. That illusion shattered when an encrypted message arrived on his private communicator. The message was short, formal, and unmistakably serious. It came from a representative of the Virelians, a humanoid alien race that had recently opened communication channels with Earth. The Virelians were known for their extraordinary intelligence, advanced technology, and a strict social structure that combined logic and psychic ability. They had requested the services of a human bodyguard, someone resourceful, physically capable, and independent-minded. And they wanted John. At first he thought it was a prank. Humans were fascinated by aliens, and plenty of charlatans would have paid to appear official. But the details were too precise, the offer too urgent, and the security fee astronomical. It was real. John found himself boarding a spacecraft within days, leaving behind the familiar streets of New York for the strange, swirling skies of Viola Prime. The journey was unlike anything John had ever experienced. The Virelian vessel was sleek, almost organic in design, with surfaces that seemed to glow from within. Gravity inside was artificially controlled, allowing him to walk normally while observing alien crew members floating effortlessly around him. The twins, Kayla and Lyra, had requested his presence personally, and as the ship approached the planet, John felt a strange mixture of excitement and unease. He had faced human enemies, rogue mercenaries, and war zones before, but this was entirely new territory. Viola Prime was breathtaking. The sky was a cascade of colors, auroras twisting across the horizon. The cities floated on massive platforms above the surface, connected by shimmering energy bridges. Towers spiraled upward, defying gravity, and everywhere John looked, lights pulsed as if the city itself were alive. His human senses struggled to comprehend it all, yet he couldn't deny the beauty. When he finally met Kayla and Lyra, he understood why the Virelians had requested a human specifically. Kayla was poised and analytical, her every movement deliberate and precise. Her gaze was sharp, as if she were constantly calculating the probability of every action around her. Lyra, by contrast, radiated energy and confidence, with a mischievous smile that suggested she enjoyed testing limits. Both women were taller than most humans and had a faint, iridescent glow to their skin, an effect of the Virelian physiology under Viola Prime's unique atmosphere. "John Mercer," Kayla said in perfect English, her voice steady and commanding. "We have observed your skills. You have qualities that our own kind sometimes lack: intuition, adaptability, and unpredictability. You will protect us." Lyra stepped closer, her eyes curious. "And maybe teach us a little about humans, too. You think differently." "That could be useful," she smiled, but John noticed a glimmer of something deeper, a test, perhaps, or a challenge. The assignment seemed simple at first: stay close, anticipate threats, and keep the twins safe. Yet the reality was far more complex. Viola Prime was not just a beautiful planet, it was politically unstable. Rival factions, jealous of the twins' influence in the council, had made attempts on their lives before. John quickly realized that brute force alone would not suffice. He needed to understand the planet, the people, and the subtle cues that indicated danger. From his first day, John was put to the test. A small drone appeared in the central atrium of the twins' residence, its metallic frame almost invisible in the soft glow of the environment. Kayla's senses had detected it, but she had hesitated, uncertain of its origin. John moved instinctively, his military training kicking in. Within seconds, he disarmed the drone, using a combination of timing, precision, and observation that no Virelian algorithm could have predicted. "You see," Kayla said afterward, her expression a mixture of respect and curiosity, "your methods are unconventional yet effective." "I had not expected this outcome," Lyra laughed softly. "I think I like him already. He's unpredictable." Even as the twins acknowledged his skills, John noticed the subtle differences in their approach to the world. Kayla approached everything with logic and careful planning. Lyra thrived on intuition, improvisation, and testing limits. They complemented each other, but the dynamic was complicated, and John had to navigate it carefully. Living quarters for a bodyguard were generous, far beyond anything on Earth. Bioluminescent plants illuminated the space in calming hues, and the architecture defied gravity with curved walls and open ceilings. For the first time since arriving, John felt a sense of vulnerability. The twins' presence was disarming, not dangerous, but emotionally overwhelming. There was a warmth in their curiosity about him, about humans, and about how his mind worked. Over the next few days, John began observing the routines of Kayla and Lyra. They trained daily, their exercises combining martial skill, psychic manipulation, and agility. John, while human, adapted quickly. He learned to anticipate psychic cues, to move with precision in zero-gravity corridors, and to handle alien weapons with surprising ease. Each day brought a new challenge, each challenge a new opportunity to prove that human ingenuity was more than just physical strength. The first real test came unexpectedly. During a high-level council meeting, an assassin tried to infiltrate the chambers using a cloaking device undetectable to most Viralian sensors. John noticed subtle distortions in the air, a shadow that didn't belong. Acting instinctively, he intercepted the intruder before any harm could come to the twins. The council members, who had relied solely on psychic detection, were astonished. "You humans think differently," Kayla said, her voice laced with admiration. "Sometimes your mind sees what ours cannot." Lyra grinned, her eyes twinkling. "That's exactly why we need you here. Don't ever stop being unpredictable." Despite these victories, the reality of the situation weighed heavily on John. The twins were constantly at risk, and Viola Prime's political landscape was fraught with danger. John understood that he had not been hired merely as muscle. He was a bridge between species, a human perspective in a world governed by psychic perception and advanced technology. There were moments of quiet between crises. Kayla would ask him about Earth, about human culture, and about the decisions that shaped his life. Lyra, ever playful, would challenge him with games or exercises that tested not just his reflexes but his creativity. John began to see them not just as charges to protect, but as individuals with complex personalities, desires, and fears. The human tendency to bond, to empathize, was something the Viralians found fascinating. One evening, after a particularly intense day of training and thwarting minor sabotage attempts, John found himself in the twins' personal quarters. They insisted he stay the night to ensure his rest, a custom unfamiliar to him but customary on Viola Prime. The room was vast, filled with floating furniture and plants that glowed gently. It was beautiful and strange, a reminder that he was far from Earth. Kayla and Lyra were close, their movements synchronized as they discussed strategy and planetary politics. John listened, noting patterns and potential vulnerabilities. Their trust in him was evident. They allowed him to observe their private conversations, something most Viralians would never permit. It was a responsibility John took seriously. As he prepared for the night, John realized the challenges ahead would not only test his physical abilities, but also his understanding of alien psychology, his ability to adapt, and his capacity to maintain boundaries in an unfamiliar culture. The twins' teasing and playful comments reminded him that he was a human among beings far more advanced in certain ways, yet his human intuition and courage were qualities that could tip the scales in their favor. The night passed without incident, but John remained alert. Every sound, every shift in the glowing lights, every subtle change in air pressure could signal danger. It was exhausting but exhilarating. He knew that his role was far more than protection. It was to observe, to anticipate, to think like a human in a world that often relied on psychic abilities rather than logic. By morning, John had earned the twins' quiet respect. Kayla acknowledged his insight in analyzing threats, while Lyra appreciated his adaptability and courage. The bond, though professional, was growing in subtle ways. The twins were intrigued by his human perspective, and John was learning to navigate the delicate balance between duty and personal connection. As the first part of his assignment drew to a close, John realized one thing clearly. Viola Prime was not just a planet of danger and intrigue. It was a place where humanity's unique strengths, curiosity, ingenuity, and courage could shine. He had been brought here not merely as a protector, but as a representative of what humans could offer in a universe filled with beings far more advanced in many ways. The challenges ahead were unknown, the threats constant, but John Mercer was ready. For the first time in a long while, he felt truly alive, facing dangers that no human could have imagined, in a world that demanded every ounce of his skill, intelligence, and courage. And as he stood on the balcony overlooking the glowing city, Kayla and Lyra beside him, he understood that this was only the beginning of a journey that would test the limits of his mind, his body, and the human spirit itself. The days on Viola Prime passed in a mix of training, observation, and constant alertness. John had begun to settle into a rhythm with Kayla and Lyra, learning their habits, anticipating their needs, and navigating the delicate nuances of Violian culture. Even simple things, like understanding when Kayla preferred silence to think, or when Lyra's teasing suggested she wanted a challenge, became crucial to his survival and effectiveness. Despite the beauty of the planet and the twins' fascinating personalities, John knew danger was never far away. Intelligence reports indicated that a faction called the Orvathians, a group of radical Violians seeking power through force, had intensified their efforts. They were patient, cunning, and technologically advanced, enough to match or even surpass many human strategies. Their attacks had been sporadic at first, small sabotage attempts and reconnaissance drones, but the intensity had begun to increase, and John's instincts told him the next strike would be bigger, more direct, and more dangerous. It began on a morning that seemed calm. The sun, or rather the twin suns of Viola Prime, cast pale golden light across the floating city. John accompanied Kayla and Lyra to a council meeting, where the twins were to discuss trade agreements with neighboring planets. The session was scheduled to last several hours, but John remained vigilant, scanning for anomalies. He had learned to notice patterns in the Violian environment that even the twins sometimes missed. Subtle shifts in energy currents, a shadow where there should be none, or a faint vibration that hinted at mechanical interference. Halfway through the meeting, a soft alarm pulsed through John's communicator. He excused himself, moving toward the central corridor, his senses alert. A drone, smaller than the ones he had previously encountered, had slipped past the outer defenses. Its design was different, sleeker, faster, and capable of evading most detection systems. Human intuition had saved him once before, and he relied on it again. Using his body as a shield and a decoy, he intercepted the drone before it could reach the twins. He dismantled it carefully, taking note of its markings. They indicated Orvathian origin. By the time he returned to Kayla and Lyra, the meeting had concluded. The twins observed him closely, Kayla with her analytical gaze, Lyra with her usual playful curiosity. "You handled that exceptionally," Kayla said. "You noticed what our systems did not. I am impressed." Lyra smirked. "You think you can impress me too, human? It's too soon to tell." John smiled faintly, hiding the tension in his chest. The encounters with the Orvathians were escalating, and he understood that improvisation alone would not suffice. They needed a strategy, something that combined his human unpredictability with the twins' psychic abilities. Over the next several days, John worked tirelessly to devise new defensive measures. He mapped the entire residence, noting blind spots, alternative escape routes, and places to create diversions. He combined these plans with the twins' existing psychic monitoring systems, creating layers of defense that were unusual, even for Violians. Kayla, always precise, assisted him in predicting attack patterns, while Lyra enthusiastically helped test human-style maneuvers. Together, they formed a synergy that neither species could achieve alone. Yet, the tension between their worlds persisted. John often found himself frustrated by the psychic signals that he could not interpret, by the moments when the twins assumed he understood things he did not. Conversely, the twins were occasionally startled by his willingness to act without waiting for a perfect plan, relying instead on instinct and improvisation. This cultural friction, however, became a source of growth rather than conflict. Each learned from the other. John became more observant, more patient, while the twins learned to appreciate human unpredictability as a tool rather than a flaw. One evening, as the trio trained in the quarters, Lyra decided to push John to his limits. She challenged him to a combat simulation in zero gravity, combining psychic illusions with physical maneuvers. The room shimmered with light as energy fields created obstacles and false enemies. John was forced to think on multiple levels at once, dodging attacks, predicting illusions, and anticipating Lyra's sudden and unpredictable movements. He emerged sweaty, bruised, but triumphant, earning an approving nod from Kayla. "You are improving," Kayla noted. "Your ability to adapt to conditions that would overwhelm a human is remarkable." Lyra laughed, clearly enjoying the scene. "And yet you are still predictable in some ways. I will exploit that eventually." Despite the light-hearted moments, the threat of the Orvathians loomed. The attacks became more sophisticated, hacking into environmental controls, sending disguised agents, and even attempting to manipulate the twins, political allies. John began to realize that his human perspective, the ability to see patterns others might ignore, to improvise when technology failed, was becoming essential. He was no longer just a bodyguard. He was a key strategist in defending the twins and their authority. The real test came unexpectedly during a celebratory event marking a new trade agreement. The plaza, suspended above the city and filled with Virelian dignitaries, was suddenly filled with smoke. Alarms blared, and a group of Orvathian mercenaries, disguised as maintenance staff, attempted to reach the twins. John acted instantly, using both human tactics and his knowledge of the plaza's structure. He directed Kayla and Lyra to safety, creating barriers, traps, and distractions that the Orvathians had not anticipated. Kayla's psychic skills amplified John's strategy. She sensed the attacker's intentions, guiding him to intercept critical threats, while Lyra used her agility to disarm and confuse the intruders. The combined effort was chaotic yet effective. Within minutes, the threat was neutralized. The plaza was damaged, but no lives were lost. The Virelian Council members who had initially doubted John's value now regarded him with awe. After the incident, as they retreated to the safety of their quarters, the twins observed John closely. He was exhausted, his human body struggling to recover as quickly as theirs, yet his mind was alert, analyzing potential improvements for future defense. "You think like a human," Kayla said quietly, her tone both approving and contemplative. "In the moments of chaos, your decisions were not what we expected, and yet they were correct. That is a strength we cannot ignore." Lyra stepped closer, her expression softer than usual. "You adapt, you survive, and you protect. That is rare, even among humans." For the first time, John allowed himself to relax, even if only slightly. He had earned their trust and, in a way, their respect. But the dangers had also reminded him that the Orvathians were relentless, and that each encounter would demand more than strength alone. In the days that followed, John observed subtle changes in the twins' behavior. They included him more in strategic discussions, shared insights into political dynamics, and even discussed personal philosophies about duty, loyalty, and survival. Kayla often asked him to analyze scenarios from a human perspective, while Lyra delighted in playful debates about courage, improvisation, and moral choices. These interactions, while professional, allowed John to understand the twins on a deeper level, seeing not just leaders, but individuals with fears, ambitions, and strengths that made them uniquely Virelian. One night, after an exhausting day of training and planning, John found himself in the twins' quarters again. They were reviewing intelligence reports when an unexpected psychic pulse triggered an alert. An Orvathian scout had breached the outer perimeter. The situation escalated quickly. John directed Kayla and Lyra to secure themselves while he moved to intercept the intruder. Using a combination of human stealth tactics and his knowledge of Virelian architecture, he cornered the scout in a narrow corridor. The confrontation was brief but decisive. John's quick thinking neutralized the threat before the scout could raise an alarm. When he returned to the twins, they were waiting, expressions a mix of concern and admiration. "You act without hesitation," Kayla said. "That is human decisiveness. It saved lives today." Lyra, leaning against a glowing column, smiled warmly. "And yet, you are always thinking several steps ahead. I think I am beginning to understand why the Council trusted a human with our lives." In that quiet moment, John realized how far he had come. He had entered Virela Prime as an outsider, a human navigating alien customs and dangers. Now, he was an integral part of the twins' security and strategy, trusted in ways few humans could imagine. His ingenuity, adaptability, and courage had proven essential in a world that often valued psychic ability and technology above all else. Despite the victories, John remained vigilant. He knew the Orvathians would not give up, and the next encounter would be more dangerous than any before. Yet, he also understood something important. Humans had strengths that could not be replicated, even on a world as advanced as Viola Prime. Human intuition, creativity, and unpredictability were invaluable tools, and in moments of crisis, these qualities often made the difference between life and death. As the night deepened, John stood at the balcony of the twins' quarters, looking out at the shimmering city. Kayla joined him first, her presence calm and reassuring. Lyra followed, energetic and curious as ever. The three of them stood together in silence, the city lights reflecting their resolve. They were not just bodyguard and charges, they were partners in survival, allies facing challenges that spanned worlds. John felt a sense of belonging he had not experienced in years. This was more than a mission, it was a purpose. Protecting the twins, navigating the alien political landscape, and anticipating dangers beyond imagination required every ounce of his skill, intelligence, and courage. And as he looked at Kayla and Lyra, he understood that the bond they were forming would be tested in ways he could not yet predict. Tomorrow, the threats would continue. The Orvathians would escalate their attempts, but John Mercer was ready. He was a human in a world of advanced aliens, relying on the qualities that made humanity remarkable: adaptability, ingenuity, and the unyielding determination to survive and protect those he had come to respect. The challenges ahead were unknown, the stakes higher than ever, but John felt ready to face them. Together with Kayla and Lyra, he had become more than a bodyguard. He had become an indispensable ally, a human bridge in a world that had once seemed alien and unapproachable. And in the quiet moments between battles, the bond between them strengthened, built on trust, respect, and the shared experience of survival against impossible odds. The air on Viola Prime was tense. Word had reached John that the Orvathians were planning a final assault, a coordinated strike aimed not only at Kayla and Lyra, but at the heart of the Violian Council itself. This was no longer a test of agility or reflexes. It was a war of strategy, timing, and wits. John felt the weight of responsibility heavier than ever. He had come to this planet as a bodyguard, an outsider, but now he understood that the survival of the twins, and perhaps the stability of the entire planet, depended on his human perspective. The day began like any other, with training and planning. Kayla focused on analyzing the intelligence reports, her calm mind calculating probabilities and outcomes. Lyra, restless and energetic, challenged John to exercises that tested his ability to adapt quickly. John had grown stronger, faster, and more confident in his understanding of Violian culture and technology, but he knew that the coming assault would require more than physical prowess. John spent hours mapping potential attack routes. He analyzed patrol patterns, energy shield cycles, and environmental anomalies that could be exploited. He knew that the Orvathians would not attack randomly. They were methodical and patient, seeking the perfect moment. But humans had an advantage: unpredictability. While the Violians relied heavily on psychic perception and structured protocols, John could anticipate irregularities that logic alone could not foresee. He built contingency plans for every scenario, some of which the twins themselves admitted were unconventional. When night fell, the city's floating towers shimmered under the light of the twin suns' fading rays. The Orvathians struck suddenly, sending a wave of drones and mercenaries toward the council building. The assault was precise and relentless, designed to overwhelm the Violian defenses in minutes. Alarms blared, energy shields flared, and chaos erupted in the corridors. John was already in motion, directing Kayla and Lyra to safety while coordinating with council security. Kayla's psychic senses allowed her to anticipate the attackers' movements, guiding John's strategy in real time. Lyra moved like a whirlwind, disarming intruders and creating diversions that drew attention away from John's primary mission, neutralizing the main threat. The human instincts that John relied upon were critical. He spotted weaknesses in the Orvathians' formation, areas where their patterns repeated, and used the environment to his advantage. John led the twins through hidden corridors he had mapped days earlier, avoiding the drones and laying traps that leveraged both human ingenuity and Virelian technology. A corridor that seemed ordinary concealed a series of pressure-sensitive panels that triggered sonic disruptors. Another section contained a hidden vent system that allowed the twins to bypass the main assault entirely. Every step was calculated, yet flexible, relying on John's ability to improvise under pressure. The Orvathians' leader, a tall figure with an intimidating presence, confronted them in the central chamber. He had studied Virelian tactics and technology, assuming that human unpredictability would be irrelevant. John, however, had anticipated the possibility of direct confrontation. Using a combination of hand-to-hand combat techniques he had refined with the twins during training and quick-thinking improvisation, he created openings for Kayla and Lyra to use their psychic powers to subdue the leader without lethal force. As the battle intensified, John realized that the Orvathians were using synchronized drones to coordinate their attacks. The twins could sense the general flow of the assault, but the intricate details required human insight. John quickly devised a countermeasure. He manipulated the energy grids in the building, creating sudden shifts in the drones' flight paths and causing confusion among the attackers. The Orvathians, trained to anticipate Virelian precision, were caught off guard by the human factor. Kayla and Lyra moved with incredible precision, their psychic abilities amplified by John's strategic positioning. Together, they cornered the remaining attackers, neutralizing the threat without unnecessary casualties. The council building, though damaged, had survived the assault, and the Orvathians were forced to retreat, their plan in ruins. After the battle, John, Kayla, and Lyra regrouped in the twins' personal quarters. The room was filled with the soft glow of bioluminescent plants, a stark contrast to the chaos outside. Kayla's expression was calm, but her eyes betrayed deep respect. "You have done what none of us expected. Your decisions, your timing, and your instincts saved more than lives today. They saved the council and perhaps the planet." Lyra approached him with her usual energy, though tempered by relief. "I said humans could surprise us, but this was beyond what I imagined. You think differently. You see possibilities where we see certainty." John felt a mixture of pride and exhaustion. He had come to Virela Prime as a bodyguard, tasked with protection, but he had become something more. A strategist, a partner, and a symbol of what human creativity and adaptability could achieve in a universe filled with advanced beings. In the following days, the council formally recognized John's contributions. He was no longer merely a human hired for protection. He was an honored ally, respected by Virelians who valued intellect, courage, and insight. The twins included him in discussions about planetary defense, trade negotiations, and political strategy. John's perspective, rooted in human experience and improvisation, was seen as invaluable. The bond between John and the twins had deepened in ways beyond professional respect. Kayla often consulted him for advice, appreciating his ability to see nuances in situations she might overlook. Lyra continued to challenge him, testing his creativity and courage, but now with a sense of camaraderie and trust that was rare even among Virelians. Together, they had formed a team that combined human ingenuity with alien psychic and technological prowess, a partnership that neither species could have achieved alone. John reflected on how far he had come. From a retired soldier on Earth to a bodyguard on an alien planet, he had faced threats that tested every skill he possessed. Yet he had also discovered strengths he did not know he had. The ability to think quickly under pressure, to anticipate patterns in unfamiliar environments, and to adapt to a culture that was at first alien in every sense. He had proven that humanity's unique qualities, creativity, courage, and unpredictability, were powerful tools in a universe of advanced beings. Despite the victory, John remained vigilant. The Orvathians were not defeated forever. They would regroup and attempt another strike. But now he was ready. He had allies, understanding of the planet's systems, and the confidence that human ingenuity could tip the balance in any conflict. The twins, too, had grown through the trials, learning to appreciate his perspective and the value of human adaptability. One evening, after the council session had concluded, John found himself standing on the balcony of the twins' quarters, overlooking the city that had become both a home and a battlefield. Kayla joined him silently, her presence calm and reassuring. Lyra appeared moments later, her energy still vibrant, though tempered by the day's events. Together, they watched the auroras dance across the sky, a reminder of the planet's beauty and resilience. "You have changed the way we view humans," Kayla said quietly. "Not as inferior beings, but as creatures capable of innovation, courage, and insight that even we sometimes lack." Lyra smiled, nudging him playfully. "And you've changed the way we work together. I think we make a good team, human." John nodded, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. He had entered this world as a protector, but he had become more than that. He was a bridge between species, a symbol of human capability, and a trusted ally of Kayla and Lyra. Humanity had once again proven that strength was not only measured in technology or psychic power, but in adaptability, courage, and the will to survive. The following weeks were a mixture of preparation and celebration. The council fortified the city's defenses based on John's strategies, combining Virelian technology with human improvisation. Kayla and Lyra continued their training, pushing John to new limits and refining their combined abilities. The Orvathians remained a looming threat, but John's presence and strategies had shifted the balance. They were no longer invincible, no longer untouchable. John often reflected on the journey. From Earth to Viola Prime, he had faced uncertainty, danger, and cultural differences that challenged every assumption he had. Yet he had also discovered something profound. Humans had a unique gift, a combination of adaptability, creativity, and courage that could alter the course of events in ways even advanced civilizations could not predict. This realization was not only personal but universal. Humanity had a place among the stars, not because of raw power alone, but because of its mind, its ingenuity, and its spirit. Kayla and Lyra often reminded him of this truth in subtle ways. Their trust, their reliance on his perspective, and their willingness to integrate his ideas into their strategies demonstrated a respect that transcended cultural boundaries. John had earned a place in their world, not as a subordinate, but as a partner, a human representative capable of influencing outcomes that no one else could. One quiet night, as the three stood together in the soft glow of their quarters, John realized that the journey was far from over. The Orvathians might return, and new challenges would arise, but he was ready. With Kayla's intelligence, Lyra's courage, and his human adaptability, they could face anything. Together, they had formed a team that represented the best of both species, a combination of strengths that no enemy could easily overcome. John took a deep breath, feeling the cool night air against his skin. The city below shimmered, a testament to resilience, cooperation, and hope. Kayla and Lyra stood beside him, silent but present, their presence a reminder of the bond forged through trials and victories. For the first time, John felt fully integrated into this alien world, not as an outsider, but as a crucial participant in its survival. He knew the Orvathians would challenge them again, but he was no longer just a human in a foreign world. He was a protector, a strategist, and a symbol of humanity's potential. The trials had proven that even against the most advanced threats, human ingenuity, courage, and adaptability could prevail. And as the auroras danced across the night sky, John Mercer felt a quiet pride. Humanity had once again shown its worth, not through power alone, but through intellect, creativity, and the unyielding determination to protect and survive. In that moment, John understood something deeper than strategy or survival. He had become part of a world that had once seemed unreachable, a world that now relied on his unique perspective. Kayla and Lyra had trusted him, and he had risen to the challenge. It was proof that humans, though not the most technologically advanced, possessed qualities that could influence the course of history among the stars. As the first light of the twin suns began to pierce the horizon, John looked at the twins and smiled. The mission had begun as protection, evolved into partnership, and had become a journey that would define the next chapter for all of them. Humanity had survived, adapted, and thrived not by imitation, but by embracing its strengths. And on Viola Prime, that truth had never been clearer.